UFC Vegas 94 takes place this weekend, and in this video, I'm going to be giving you my exact predictions for how I think every fight is going to play out in the card. So without further ado, let's get into the video. As always, I like to look at my past performance to see, what we can improve on, and I'm just going to cut it to you straight, guys. Tracy Cortez might have been probably the worst pick of my entire picking career. Not really sure what made me pick that way. It's not because she's hot, I swear. There were other factors, but, doesn't matter. Muslim Salikov, snipe of an underdog. I don't care if he got the robbery win. His underdog odds were too high because the robbery win aspect was very apparent. Gene Silva, he might be him. Gabriel Bonfim, I guess he can win decisions now, sure. C-Rod, I thought he had higher IQ. He decides to just dive into Erosa's guard for the guillotine, which is like Erosa's main way of winning in the UFC. Whatever. Razak Al-Hassan KO, it gives me a loss for that, but he was on his way to do, he was going to do that. If Cody Durden didn't do what he did, that round 1 KO was happening. Joshua Van decision, not good. Charles Johnson, he was my pick when I first saw the fight happen, announced. And then over the course of the week, I was like, Josh Van, he might be the GOAT. He's not the GOAT. Fad McCline, Fad McCline is basically what started my decline on this card. I lost 3 straight picks after starting with Fad McCline. I was on Jasmine, and then I switched. I gotta stop doing that. Montel Jackson, free money. Free money. All the sheep taking Damon Blackshear. Show your faces in my comments last week. Montel Jackson. Luana Santos sub, never a doubt. Andre Petrosky decision. Josh Friend. If you're picking Josh Friend, I was like, what are you guys doing picking Josh Friend? Petrosky was always the play. And Evan Elder decision. Darius Flowers is not UFC level. Anyways, not too bad last week. But on this channel, we're aiming for the sweep, okay? It's not about, he went 7-4. No, I don't care. I'm trying to go 11-0, okay? And this week, get your brooms out. Let's get into the picks. I have to make these breakdowns shorter than usual because my PC just starts to overheat and explode. So I'm going to give you the bare bones of every fight I possibly can, starting with the first fight of the night with Muhammad Usman taking on Thomas Peterson. Muhammad Usman is the king of the greasy heavyweight fight, okay? If you put someone against Usman that's a greasy low-level heavyweight, I feel that Muhammad Usman has the tools to beat that type of fighter. He beat Jake Collier that way. He beat, let's see who else. Junior Tafa, Zach Pauga, all people that are, mid-level heavyweights that probably shouldn't even be heavyweights. And then we have another one in Thomas Peterson. Yes, he has a pretty good record, 8-2. Most of them are ground and pound finishes, or decisions. So he's usually able to get the fight to the ground. You're not taking Usman down. I don't think so. To be fair, people really haven't tried to take Usman down in the UFC. Thomas Peterson might be the first guy to actually try. But I think Usman fighting out of Killcliff MMA, he's looking pretty good recently. His only loss recently is Mick Parkin, and I actually think Mick Parkin should be a ranked heavyweight. So if we're looking at the low-level heavyweights, I think Usman is like S tier. I think Thomas Peterson, he could clinch his way to a decision. That's the only thing I see happening. If somehow Usman has no takedown defense, which he did get exposed in the PFL, it does get a little worrisome. If that is the case, this is crazy. But, Thomas Peterson getting knocked out by Costa Acosta and losing to Jamal Pogues, that's all I really had to see. He's as low-level heavyweight as it gets. I'm taking the king of the low-level heavyweights, Muhammad Usman, by decision. Next fight in the card, we have Luana Carolina taking on Lucy Portilova. So this is another fight where a majority of the Tapology users have the slight favorite, and yet the line is like plus 100, minus 100. The line is very close, but Tapology users are all in on one side. I happen to agree with this side. I'm not really sure what Vegas or bettors are seeing picking Portilova. So Portilova is 3-7 in the UFC. And her wins are against low-level UFC fighters. Yanan Wu, congratulations, you beat Yanan Wu. And then before that, it wasn't even UFC. She had a UFC stint left, won a couple of regional fights, came back to the UFC, and she's been 1-2 since. Jocelyn Edwards split decision loss. That's not good. Aline Perez, she just got taken down at will. I think Luana Carolina is the type that's going to fight for your dollar. Okay, guys? That's really the point of this pick. Luana Carolina does have that KO loss to Molly McCann. She does have a split decision loss to Joanne Wood. And I think people are looking at those two fights, and they're making that their whole picture for Luana Carolina. But they're not looking at her last two fights, okay? A win over Ivana Petrovic. She was not supposed to win this fight, okay? Ivana Petrovic 6-0. She's completely dominant on the ground. She dominated Liang Na on the ground. That's not a big deal, but Luana Carolina was able to, fend off a lot of the takedowns, not get controlled a lot, win a decision. Pretty good. Against Julia Stolarenko. Julia, another one that was supposed to win. Her stock is rising. She just submitted Molly McCann. Everybody thinks that Stolarenko is like her. She tries to submit Luana Carolina for 2 rounds, can't do it. Luana Carolina gets the round 3 KO. I just think that Luana Carolina, out of all the women's MMA fighters, like Luana Carolina and Muhammad Usman are very similar in the fact that they're both low level, and the fact that I think they're at the top of the lowest level. And I think Lucy Podolova falls into the low level, and Luana Carolina is just going to show her that dog. So give me Luana Carolina by decision. Next fight in the card, we have Loik Radzahbov taking on Trey Ogden now. I see a lot of people taking Trey Ogden because they're like, oh, Trey Ogden has an MMA gym. He's going to utilize the game plan. He's good at making game plans for fights. Like against Kurt Holobaugh, his game plan was to, take him down at will, and he basically controlled Kurt Holobaugh for almost all the 15 minutes. Against, who else? Daniel Zellhuber, his game plan was, okay, attack him with leg kicks, stay out of range, don't get hit with the power shots, and he was able to do that for 3 rounds and win. Against Nicholas Mata, the game plan was get him to the ground, submit him. That worked out as well. It just so happens that it ended in a no contest because Mata, didn't tap, but he was about to tap. His losses are concerning. He does have a loss to Ignacio Bahamondes. It's not the worst. Bahamondes is a freak of nature. But his loss to Jordan Levitt, that is one where I'm like, Jordan Levitt was able to control him, okay? Jordan Levitt was able to get some good strikes on him. And Loik Radzahbov can do everything Jordan Levitt does, but stronger and more powerful. Now, that is very worrisome. Trey Ogden, how does he win this fight? Leg kicks? Yeah, I guess Loik doesn't deal with them well. But I don't know if that's going to get the job done. How he's going to get takedowns on Loik? Maybe. I mean, Salwati had a couple, but he didn't really control Loik for that long. So maybe Trey can win that way. I'm hearing a lot of maybes for Trey, but I know a lot of definites for Loik in the fact that he is the stronger guy. He is the more fearsome wrestler, grappler. In terms of cardio, Trey might have a better tank, but Radzahbov is coming off a round 3 KO where his cardio is the thing that made him win that fight. So I'm going to take the heavier hitter, the more fearsome wrestler, and, the guy that has been, fighting for his dollar in the cage. Trey Ogden has no KOs on his record at all, even in regional scene. Most of his wins on the regional scene are submissions by rear naked choke, submissions by guillotine choke, He has been guillotine choked himself as well, which is a cause for concern for picking Trey Ogden. I just think there are too many red flags with Trey Ogden. You're relying on a mythical, game plan Trey Ogden. That's the mythical fighter you're relying on. And I just don't see it. And Loik also recently found out, Tajikistan, yes, but he actually has one of those cool hats. So cool hat wins, 95% of the time? So I'm going to take Loik Radzahbov by decision. Next fight in the card, we have Miranda Maverick taking on Diana Barbosa. So I think if Miranda Maverick gets put up against a grappler wrestler, the line can never be higher than minus 200. Even if it's Diana Barbosa, one of the worst, flyweights in the division in terms of stock rising. That makes sense. She's one of the highest rated low-level prospects. Does that make sense? So she doesn't have the best striking. Ernesta Karakati basically, dusted her up whenever the fight was on the feet. Barbosa did win that fight against Karakate, but on the feet, it was not even close. Miranda Maverick, her striking has been improving fight by fight. This is short notice for Barbosa-ish. I think Miranda has the experience edge. I think in wrestling and grappling, I think it's going to be pretty even. It's a lot more even than people think. And on the feet, I think it's also pretty even because Miranda's striking is not the best. I'm slowly convincing myself to take Barbosa, but I'm not. Maverick is the younger fighter by 5 years. She's been in the UFC for way longer. If she had beaten Macy Barber in that split decision a couple years ago, she'd probably be in the title contentions. You know, she did lose to Erin Blanchfield, I think. She lost to Jasmine Jasudavicius, people that are wrestler grapplers. And that's exactly what Barbosa is. Now, I have no bets on this fight. Not confident pick at all. But I think you just have to take Miranda Maverick for the UFC experience edge. As I'm talking, I'm like, wait, do I pick Barbosa here? Because it's like I'm picking Miranda Maverick for all like weird reasons, you know? I'm just gonna take Maverick, and you know, that's it. That's the end of it. Low level women's MMA. She has some kind of edge, guys. I don't know. I'm not betting this fight, so if you are, take Barbosa. Why not? YOLO. That's what you're doing, taking Barbosa. I'm not doing that. Give me Miranda Maverick by decision. Next fight in the card, we have Brian Kelleher taking on Cody Gibson in a fight that, if it was booked maybe like 8 years ago, it would be a pretty decent fight. I feel like even 8 years ago, you would look at it the same way you do now. It's just like, okay, two guys in the bantamweight division that have no title aspirations. They have no aspirations of even being in the top 15, you know, 36 years old, 37 years old. Cody Gibson, if either of them were to be in their fighting prime, it would be Cody Gibson. He is on a 2-fight losing streak, but, you know, Miles John's decision loss, not the worst. I mean, he did pretty good in that fight. That was only 3 months ago. Brad Katona, he eclipsed 100 significant strikes. That was a pretty good fight. 2 losses, but 2 pretty good fights, you know? Besides that, the Ultimate Fighter, he was in the UFC a while ago. I think Cody Gibson is the hungrier guy here. I think he has more to lose. Like, this is his last stint in the UFC, and then he's going to come out and lose 3 fights in a row. They're going to say goodbye, Cody. Brian Kelleher, yes, they might cut him too if he loses, but he is coming off that neck surgery. He fought Cody Garbrandt after the neck surgery, got knocked out in round 1, and that was 6 months ago. And he has 2 other rear naked choke losses prior to that. On the feet, I think this is Gibson all day. The only way I can see Kelleher winning is by landing a lucky overhand. Because he's not going to wrestle Cody. Miles Johns didn't even do that well wrestling Cody. So, Cody by KO is a sneaky play, considering, you know, Kelleher might be complete dust. But I'm going to take Cody Gibson by decision. No bet on this play. Cody Gibson by decision is the play. Next fight in the card is Hyder Amil taking on Jang Young Lee. Now, this is a fight I do have some money on. It is Hyder Amil. I got him as a pretty juicy underdog. He's 9-0. The causes for concern are he is 34 years old and Jang Young Lee is 28, okay? He has a 1-inch height disadvantage and a 3-inch reach disadvantage as well. Other than that, I think this fight is very close. Jang Young Lee, his only UFC fight has been against Blake Bilder. I don't really rate Blake Bilder's abilities that high in terms of MMA. He's a good wrestler, don't get me wrong, but striking leaves something to be desired. Hyder Amil's striking is not that bad, okay? He knocked out Fernie Garcia. Granted, Fernie Garcia is not that good. No offense, Fernie Garcia. But no one's really knocking out Fernie Garcia, you know what I mean? Like, they might be rocking him, but Hyder Amil was able to actually get him out of there. Like, I think Hyder Amil has the X factor, you know, like, fight for your dollar. These are the people I like to bet on. Jang Young Lee, before Blake Bilder, it's consecutive fights in road to the UFC. Okay, and his most recent win besides that was Yizha a year and 5 months ago in a decision that probably should not have went his way because Yizha's, had a million takedowns. So Jang Young Lee, nothing really about him comes off the page. He is an athletic guy. A lot of the South Korean fighters fight very similarly, like getting in your face, doing a bunch of jumpy stuff. But I'm just not buying it in this matchup. I think Hyder Amil, I think he's just going to outmaneuver Jang Young Lee. I think if takedowns were to be involved, it would be Hyder trying to take down Jung. Maybe Jung tries to go for it in later rounds, gets reversed. I think there are a lot of advantages for picking Hyder Amil in this spot. I think at him at dog odds is definitely a play. It is worrisome. He opened at plus 300. So Vegas was like, oh, Hyder Amil has no chance. But I don't really know what they're looking at, Like, why would they make Hyder Amil plus 300? He's plus 140 now, but I'm trying to get in the head of Vegas. I don't really understand. The only thing I could think of is maybe Jang Young Lee is bigger and younger. That's it. Other than that, Hyder Amil should win this. Give me Hyder Amil by decision. Next fight in the card, we have Ho Choi taking on Bill Algeo. Now, Ho Choi, took a very long hiatus over the course of his last 5 fights. So you can see first L 7 months ago against Cub Swanson. That fight is in the UFC Hall of Fame because of how good it was. People consider it the best fight of all time. Lost to Jeremy Stephens by KO shortly after. Lost to Charles Jourdain by KO shortly after. And then he took a 3-year hiatus. Then fought Kyle Nelson, went to a majority decision. I'm pretty sure 4 of these, if not all of these, were fight of the night. So Ho Choi is going out there, he's getting in your face, he's taking the punches, and he's throwing them back. Cub Swanson, people say, might have broken Ho Choi because Cub Swanson was just landing bombs, and then Ho Choi didn't get out of there, but then he gets knocked out in his next 2 fights. But takes 3 years off, rejuvenates the chin, and goes to a majority decision with Kyle Nelson. I like that a lot, considering Kyle Nelson just starched Bill Algeo, and that was only 3 months ago. People say early stoppage, but Kyle Nelson was landing bombs, okay? And I think Ho Choi has a very similar, style in the fact that he's pressure. Bill Algeo, the wins he has are against guys that aren't really giving him pressure. Alexander Hernandez, okay, maybe he's trying to get some takedowns early, but he gasses and the pressure's gone. TJ Brown, not really UFC level. Herbert Burns, definitely not UFC level. These are the guys that Bill Algeo is beating. Now, you might make the debate that Ho Choi could easily fall into someone like an Alexander Hernandez or a Herbert Burns. But I think that Ho Choi just has the finishing power. I think he has the pressure. I think he has the in-your-face ability to get Bill Algeo out of there. And I'm low-key afraid that Bill Algeo's chin might be cooked. And for all those reasons, I'm going to take Ho Choi as the underdog with a round 2 KO. Next fight on the card, we have Cody Durden taking on Bruno Silva. So, Bruno Silva on a 3-fight first-round finish streak. He had a good loss against Tagir Ulanbekov. So, those are reasons to take Bruno Silva, okay? But the reasons to not take Bruno Silva, the reasons why I'm taking Cody Durden, is because Cody Durden has the 3-inch height advantage. Cody Durden has the 1-inch reach advantage. Cody Durden has the activity advantage. Bruno Silva's last fight was a year and 4 months ago. Cody Durden has had 3 fights in that span of time, going 2-1. He lost to Tagir Ulanbekov, but so was every other flyweight. Bruno Silva lost to Tagir Ulanbekov, it's not a bad loss. His win against Charles Johnson is aging like a fine wine. His win against Jake Hadley is how I think this fight is going to go. I think Jake Hadley and Bruno Silva are very similar in the fact that, they'll get in your face. They'll try to find a finish. They'll try to do their whack, wrestling, trying to get you to the ground. And it's just not going to work. Jake Hadley tried that against Charles Johnson, and Charles Johnson just pieced him up at range. Not saying Durden has the same striking as Charles Johnson, but I think Durden is going to be the better wrestler. He's going to nullify Silva's wrestling. He's the bigger guy. And I think Cody Durden might actually have more power. Although, both guys have KO wins over JP Buys. Cody Durden has one too, right there. I think the striking is pretty similar. I think the wrestling edge goes slightly to Cody. And the reach and the height and the age and the activity, all Cody's favor. So I'm going to take Cody Durden by decision. Next fight in the card, we have Kurt Holobaugh taking on Kenan Krzyzewski. So Krzyzewski fights out of the Fighting Nerds. So that is a reason to pick him. But if you know anything about the Fighting Nerds, about what we've seen so far, Mauricio Rufy, Kyle Baralho, Gene Silva, Carlos Prates, none of these guys are shooting for takedowns, okay? Didn't see a single one. Mauricio Rufy got that weird X scissor takedown, but he wasn't really shooting for a takedown. Kurt Holobaugh loses his fight if Krzyzewski goes all in on the takedowns. It's that simple. Krzyzewski is 15-2, but he got starched by Elves Brenner 8 months ago in the first round. So Elves Brenner is a dog, junkyard dog, as people say, but I'm not liking that. Kurt Holobaugh, he's only really losing to people that go all in on the takedowns. Trey Ogden controlled him for 10 minutes plus, and Thiago Moises controlled him for an infinite amount of time. Austin Hubbard tried to do that, but Holobaugh has an active guard. He got the triangle choke. On the feet, I rate Kenan and Kurt very similarly. If anyone's getting a knockout, it's Kenan over Kurt. I think Kurt just has the ability to outpoint Kenan. I haven't seen Kurt really be chinny, even though he's 37. Kenan is 33, so it's not that much different. I know I've been using age as a factor to pick a lot of these guys up to this point, but Holobaugh opened as a -250 favorite from Vegas, and people have been slamming Krzyzewski, which I understand. Fighting nerds, 15-2, a lot of KOs in the record. But I think Kurt Holobaugh, he's got that veteran savvy, you know? He can outpoint Krzyzewski on the feet. Just don't get taken down. That's it. Even if he does get taken down, I like Holobaugh's active guard. I'm not a fan of how he likes to just stay on the ground, though. So here's the hoping that Krzyzewski does not shoot for takedowns infinitely. And if that doesn't happen, Kurt Holobaugh should win this, and I'm going to take him by decision. Next fight in the card, we have Steve Garcia taking on Ho Choi. So Steve Garcia's last 3 fights are all KOs. Not all in round 1, but they're all KOs. We got Chase Hooper, which is aging like a fine wine. Chase Hooper is doing pretty good recently. A KO against Shyler Nerd-Becky. That's pretty good. And a KO against Melky Costa. Now, the Melky Costa fight is the one that I want to hone in on because that's how I think this fight is going to go. Ho Choi is pretty chinny. Got KO'd by Michael Trezano. He got KO'd, I guess I'm not going to find it, but he got submitted by Alex Caceres. Getting finished by Alex Caceres, that's not a good look. Josh Holobaugh, I guess that's okay. And a win over Jarno Aarons is pretty good. So if Ho Choi were to win this fight, I think it would be by using the clinch, spamming the clinch, doing what Melky Costa did against Steve Garcia. Just being as close as possible, get out of the striking range of Steve Garcia. If Ho Choi is going to enter a firefight, which is what I think is going to happen, he's going to be slept. And I think Steve Garcia is going to find the round 1 KO. Because when he fought Melky Costa tried to do what I think Ho Choi should do, which is grab him, hold him for 5 minutes, hold him for another 5 minutes, hold him for another 5 minutes. I just don't think that's going to work against Steve Garcia. He did well against Melky Costa doing the same thing. And for those reasons, I'm not really seeing a way that Ho Choi is winning this other than a robbery greasy decision. And everything is pointing to Steve Garcia KO. I'm going to take it early. Give me round 1, Steve Garcia KO. The co-main event of the evening is Brad Tavares taking on Jung Young Park. And I don't think I have gotten a single bet on Brad Tavares that returned me money. All right, let's go over the last 5. RoboCop, I slammed Tavares because I thought, RoboCop would keep it on the feet. That's where Tavares, lives. And RoboCop got multiple takedowns and knocked out Tavares. Bad. Chris Weidman. You might think, Vince, how did you lose money on Chris Weidman versus... Because I bet Tavares inside the distance like a dummy. I thought, he would get the KO on Weidman. I thought Weidman was cooked. He was fighting on one leg, and Tavares didn't finish him. And then, of course, against Bruno Silva, I bet Tavares, because I think it's going to be standing. I'm correct, it is standing, but he actually gets the KO, so rip. Against Dricus, I never thought Dricus was good up until recently. Beats Tavares. Against Akhmedov, I bet Akhmedov. And Tavares wins. It's like, I can't win. Again, so me picking the Iron Turtle here probably just tells you that Tavares is going to somehow find a flippin' way to win. I don't know how, but a lot of people think Jung Young Park is a submission specialist. Yes, he has a bunch of rear naked choke wins in his recent bouts, but mainly that's coming from the striking. I think Tavares might be cooked, ladies and gentlemen, and Iron Turtle's stock is rising. If this is on the feet, this is Jung Young Park. He has more power. And Tavares is not shooting for takedowns. The thing about Tavares, his whole career was, oh my God, he's so good at defending takedowns. His takedown defense is so good. But then you look at the people he fought, it's not people that are good at takedowns. And then he fights someone like RoboCop who's semi-decent at takedowns. He gets taken down twice at will. Iron Turtle, that's what he does, is take down. There's just too many things pointing in the Iron Turtle's direction. His stock is rising. He does have a recent loss to Andre Muniz by a robbery split decision in a fight where Muniz went all in on the takedowns. Brad Tavares, if he shoots for one takedown, I'm going to be shook. Okay? On the feet, I think Jung Young Park wins. On the ground, I think Jung Young Park wins. Don't even see a scenario Tavares wins. Unless it's one of those freaking greasy apex, point fighting at a distance, clinch against the cage. That's the only way Tavares is winning. So I think it's maybe a 15-20% chance that happens. 80% chance in Jung Young Park's favor. I should probably slam him, but I'm not going to bet it because I've lost money on every Tavares fight in his UFC career. So for those reasons, give me Jung Young Park by a round 3 submission. And that brings us to the main event of the evening. Amanda Lemos taking on Verna Jandiroba. This is very simple, guys. Virna Jandiroba is all in on the takedown, all in on the grappling. She has some striking. She throws a lot of overhands because that's what every wrestler does. And sometimes those overhands hit, okay power. And, she, on the ground, she's going to swamp you. She has good pressure and just good ground control overall. So, against Amanda Lemos, people are looking at the Wei Li fight, and they're like, oh my god, Wei Li controlled Lemos for almost all of the 25 minutes. Guys, newsflash, Virna Jandiroba is not Wei Li Zhang, okay? Amanda Lemos did pretty well against Mackenzie Dern. All right, where's she at? Mackenzie Dern, in her last fight. Mackenzie Dern, granted, has really no good offensive entries for takedowns. Her main game is just hopefully the fight gets to the ground and I can reverse it. But Amanda Lemos did pretty good against her, and that was coming right off of the Wei Li Zhang loss. So the UFC is like, you know what? Let's see if you do any better against another sub person. And boom, Lemos did better. So she did lose to Andrade by a weird triangle choke. I'm just going to ignore that. Lemos is one of the people in the women's division that actually can knock you out. And I think she just has the power to sway the judges' scorecards in her direction. I think if Virna Jandiroba controls her for 4 minutes and Lemos keeps standing for a minute and lands the heavy shots, Lemos wins the round. This is greasy women's MMA main event in the Apex, most likely going to the scorecards. I'm taking the finish. I think Jandiroba's gas tank is going to get cooked. She's going to have to go all in on the takedowns to win. And by round 4, I think she's just going to be cooked. She's not Wei Li Zhang. She's not Wei Li Zhang. I'm taking the slight underdog to win by finish. Amanda Lemos has KO power. Jandiroba's gas tank has historically been depleted as the rounds went on. So give me round 4 KO. Amanda Lemos in your main event. Thank you for getting to the end of another episode of Finn's Chats. I hope you did enjoy this one. Let me know in the comments who you got this weekend. As you know, my Twitter and Instagram are linked in the bio. I post all my bets there. I don't actually really discuss them too heavily on the pick predictions. I do discuss them kind of at the beginning from the previous week, but if you want really in-depth breakdowns for the bets, you know where to go. Hit my X, hit my gram, and let me know in the comments who your favorite underdog is this week. And without further ado, have a great rest of your day. You savage.